Yes, good morning, everyone. I hope you have had a very nice week with this Transport Innovation Summit by Intelligent Transport, and welcome to this webinar session number 7 on smart journey planning and information delivery. Uh, On behalf of Mars Alliance, it's my pleasure to host this session with four expert panelists, and during the forthcoming 1.5 hours, we will discuss on the topic of journey planning and information delivery from their various point of view. Of course, this information delivery to the passengers is very important, but also for the mobility as a service, which is my domain and the topic I'm really passionate about and keen on working with. But today in this session, we of course also look it from the point of view and in the context of the COVID crisis and this recovery from the COVID. So in post-COVID situation, how these tools can help to predict ridership levels and adapt new information services, how we could use artificial intelligence and data analysis to make journey planning more accurate and personalized. And also we will discuss the importance of open data and different data sharing models in pulling information services together and breaking down the silos. As I said, we will have 4 speakers today. Unfortunately, Jeff Marutian from District Department of Transportation is not able to join our lineup today, but I'm really grateful to welcome four other speakers representing the organization Southern East Railway, STIP, the transport operator from here, authority from here, my hometown of Brussels, LUMINATOR Technology Group, and Transport for the North. But I think it's time to start the show. So our first speaker is John Backway, who is Head of Retail from South Eastern Railway. And now, John, floor is yours.
Well, good morning, and thank you for having me. I'm talking today about smart journey planning and information delivery. And first of all, just an introduction to me. My name is John Backway, Head of Retail at South Eastern Railway. So who are South Eastern Railway? Well, we're a train operator serving South East London and Kent, and also parts of East Sussex as well. We're actually one of the largest train operators in the United Kingdom, with our operations mainly focused on the core London commuter market, but we also serve a number of seaside destinations as well. And currently we're the operator of the only high-speed rail link here in Britain, which runs along HS1 between St Pancras International and the Channel Tunnel. And that high-speed rail link has really transformed the way that our customers have been able to travel over the last 10 years since it opened in 2009. Clearly, as a London commuter operator, we've been hit quite badly by the coronavirus in terms of how our customers have chosen to travel. But this presentation is really around how we're using technology to reassure our passengers and encourage them to travel back with us again. South Eastern is also part of the Go Ahead Group, which is a major UK listed transport operator, operates buses and trains, not just in the UK, but also internationally. But just to focus on the UK operations, buses mainly focused around the south of England, but considerable operations in the north, east, and also Yorkshire. And rail, as well as South Eastern, who indeed I work for, there is Govia Thameslink Railway, our sister TOC, which operates services also around London, but also to the north as well as to the south. So talking about COVID-19, clearly there's been a dramatic change to the way people travel. And looking at this graph, you can see that immediately after the pandemic started and lockdown restrictions imposed, we saw all modes of transport decline rapidly. But since then, the recovery for motor vehicles has been much stronger than it has for public transport, And you can see here that motor vehicles are almost back to pre-pandemic levels in terms of their market share and usage, whereas National Rail, Underground and bus are still well down, despite some modest growth in recent weeks. And we see a lot of this coming down to passenger perception of safety, and this is tracked on a weekly basis by the watchdog Transport Focus. And although many people feel safe on trains, a significant proportion still don't. And what's interesting is that the perception of safety appears to be much lower for people who do not use trains or have not used trains since lockdown compared to those that have. So those who have used trains since lockdown, more than 70% feel safe, whereas those who haven't done so, 60% or less, do not feel safe. And that's a really interesting gap, which is driven by perception rather than any kind of radical difference between those two groups of people. And what passengers are saying is that they're very concerned about social distancing. And this is a theme that comes up again and again, which is clearly expected given the context of the situation we're in. And it's that proximity to people and trains and indeed buses as well, which are putting people off travelling. And we do have other factors as well in terms of face mask compliance and cleaning, but time and again we see this comment about social distancing and the fact that people won't use public transport until social distancing is in place. So what are we doing? So this is the rail industry's Safer Travel Pledge, which has been made by not just South Eastern but all other train operators as well. So it's about really running as many trains as we can and longer trains where possible to allow people to travel more comfortably and with more space. Clearly, we're boosting cleaning and helping people with hygiene, making it easy for people to clean their hands and sanitize at regular intervals. But there's also a really important element here, which is about improving information, particularly through technology. And what we're asking our people to do, our passengers to do, washing their hands and sanitising where they can, wearing a face covering, and travelling at quieter times. Now that travelling at quieter times message is clearly going to be influenced very heavily by the technology that was mentioned in the previous slide, giving people more information. And that is where Seat Finder comes in. So Seat Finder is a tool that we've launched recently to help people travel with more confidence and in a socially distanced way. So the background to this is that we've never had visibility of live onboard passenger numbers and have traditionally relied on surveys which take place on a very infrequent basis at a significant cost and with significant margin for error, very manually. We would like to have a much more dynamic approach to measuring passenger numbers. And actually, we see this being given a new urgency through those factors described for COVID-19. And looking at the methods of how we count, so clearly there's the manual counters, the very traditional manual method which exists today. We also have a tool at our disposal which hasn't really been utilised a great deal until now, other than for planning and reporting purposes, and that's loadway sensors, which are really basically giant measuring scales on board a large number of our trains, which allow us to really know how many people are on trains through applying a factor, an algorithm to convert a weight into the total number of passengers. And then we see some of the future methods that have been looked at around collecting data through Wi-Fi potentially or Bluetooth, and AI around giving a much kind of richer and potentially more predictive way of actually counting and advising how many people are likely to be in any given place. And some of that's really into the future, and we're not necessarily in a position where those tools are available to us at this very moment. Nevertheless, we are investigating that. So looking at loadway as really a kind of quick win, we have 3 main fleets of trains at Southeastern, and around about half of our total vehicles are equipped with loadway capability, the Electrostar and high-speed fleets. Unfortunately, the remaining half, which is the networker fleet type, is an older train which doesn't have that capability at this stage. But in terms of how it works for those fleets that we do have it on, the sensors on board the train, they measure the total weight, and that is fed into a data platform supplied by the train manufacturing company, Bombardier or Hitachi. And that's actually available to us to download. And what our engineering teams have done is they've put in place a system that the engineering teams use to decompress and de-encrypt that loadway data and translate it into a weekly average load figure for each train service. And we put that into the rail industry's open data system, which is called Darwin. And that's published through a system called Pushport and made available to anyone who consumes that National Rail Inquiry's real-time information. And that's really important to us because this data, although you could argue it's proprietary and confidential to Southeastern, is really important to the whole industry, and we took the decision to publish that into those open data feeds. And SeatFinder will report 5 different statuses which align to the social distancing principles. So you can see there that the green statuses show that social distancing is possible. From a 2 metre perspective, if it's the dark green, and a 1 metre perspective if it's light green. And then we see the colour-coded icons go through from yellow, orange to red, where we're advising passengers social distancing may not in fact be possible. And on our app, which will be launching next week, we're showing this information in both the kind of personalised common journeys feature, where passengers can set up their own individual departure board for their journey, and also in our live departure screens as well. And you can see there that the loading indicator showing what the usual availability is of seating will apply on every calling point for the journey, so passengers can see how the train's kind of filling up as it goes along the journey, both kind of before and after the stops that the passenger themselves are travelling on. And in addition to that loading data, we've also put in place information on carriage length and also the status of toilet facilities as well. And we see the toilet facilities in particular as being very useful for people because that will allow people to wash their hands, which we know is a key part of the fight against COVID-19. And also for those passengers with accessibility requirements, they have that confidence to know when they board the train that those accessible toilets are open and available to them. And then moving on to the future, really, AI-based prediction tools is where we see this going as the next step. And a number of developments in our the bus side of our business at Go Ahead Group are already trialling this in a real-world environment. So we're working with a company at Go Ahead Group called City Swift, who are taking the data that we've just been looking at for Southeastern in terms of loadway, but also aggregating it with other sources of data to provide a more accurate and dynamic predicted value for loading. So that might include weather forecasts, because clearly services are going to change in terms of loading based on whether it's rainy or sunny. And particularly we see this for our seaside destinations. A sunny day, we'll see lots and lots of people travel to the beach. If it's raining, they're more likely to go to an indoor shopping centre or not travel at all. And City Swift have also brought in social media mining and other traffic monitoring sources to really augment that data on boarding at buses with a much richer set of predicted data. And so Go Ahead have launched something called When to Travel, and you can see the similarities with the Seat Finder tool. It's a color-coded scale. It shows the departures for a range of bus stops and journeys, and uses that color coding scale to give people that confidence to know that they can avoid those busy services and when they can travel when it's most quiet for them, and that promotes social distancing. So in summary, we know clearly with this week's developments that the virus is not beaten yet, and we must keep supporting that government message of ensuring people can keep distance from one another. And that social distancing objective is now really baked into a lot of our planning assumptions and how we are arranging our services and providing tools to customers. But for us, we face really this fine balancing act. We want to encourage people back to travelling with us. We feel that it's very important to have that message that public transport is a good way to travel. We don't want there to be many people getting in their cars. There's many other downsides to that, besides kind of the obvious ones of congestion and air quality. The overall environmental impact is very damaging, and our business is public transport. We want people to travel with us on buses and trains, but clearly we don't want to be in a position where we're promoting services to the extent that they're becoming overcrowded and people can't socially distance. So our solution is to use data and as much data as we can, both existing data sources and new ones, to allow passengers to make those informed choices, which will help to manage overall demand and really spread people onto the quieter services. So we're very happy to have launched Seat Finder and When to Travel, and look forward to the next set of developments with those tools. Thank you very much for listening. Well, good morning, and
thank you so much, John. It was really insightful presentation, and I have been very amazed to see how quickly public transport sector has been able to launch these kind of new services, which are playing really important role in regaining back or re-establishing the trust of users and passengers, so that they can feel in ease and feeling safe there in public transport and in different shared mobility options, including information on the social distancing measures, but also the quieter traveling times, that when it's maybe there's a better capacity or like less occupancy there, and also about the hygiene measures. I think we can go back to those topics when we have time for the panel discussion. And of course, I encourage our audience to be actively submitting your questions. So please do use the chat function, what is available in the platform. And after all 4 presentations, we go back to your questions, and then you can have a direct access to get more information from our distinguished speakers today. But now I think it's a good time to welcome our next speaker. So I'm really happy to welcome Pierre-André Roulemont from STIP MIVP to take the floor. And Pierre is a CIO of STIP. And I'm really also personally excited to hear and see your presentation, as you are my public transport authority here in the city of Brussels or capital region of Brussels, and I'm the user of your network and services every day. And we had also a nice chance to meet earlier this year there in London while we were discussing different ticketing related topics. So Pierre, the floor is yours. You can start your presentation.
Yeah, thank you very much, Pia. Is everybody seeing my screen? It's okay now, it's working fine. Thank you. Well, good to have you as one of our customers. And it's my pleasure to share with you some of the initiatives that we have just launched recently and that we are working on for the future. Some of that stuff is really creative. So I'm Pierre-André Roulemont. I'm the CIO of STIP since more than 7 years now, and I proudly show you my CDO of the Year award that I received, which is a very interesting year to get an award, because you don't get invited except to this type of event. So I guess some of the fun parts I couldn't make, but still it's a great recognition for the work that we do inside for the city of Brussels. Just a couple of figures. We have 9,400 employees. Keep that figures in mind. I'll refer back later on. We do about 1 million passenger a day. Brussels is a city of 1.3 million people. And as you can see down on the right, we've been growing quite well the last 10 years. It's a will of the region in order to improve the quality of the city. First of all, an initiative that we could launch very quickly was to show the load on the vehicles per line. This is something that we could make not only based on an artificial intelligence kind of approach, which is statistical, but we started some years ago to put some sensors on top of the doors of all our vehicles, and we can count people going in and out. So we have the precise data for more than 60% of our vehicles that we start sharing and providing really precise guidance to our customers, so that they can choose when they take their public transport in order to have the safest trip that they could imagine. So it's been a great project and a great focus, because that kind of project, counting passengers, was something that was in the background, and now it has, with the COVID, been given a very strong focus inside the organization, and that's it's a great stuff. Another very exciting project that we have just launched is our MaaS platform. The 16th of September, we've launched that with a limited set of people, about 2,000. And it's a fairly traditional MaaS, in the sense that we take all the mass transit providers and include some additional scooters and bikes and car sharing services to bundle that in a lean offering, specifically targeted for the Brussels market. So here we have a very neat and a good looking interface that provides the traditional capabilities that a MaaS service provider would do. Now, the interesting part of that is the reason why we're doing that and the process that we're using. This is a pilot because we felt that identifying all the capabilities that we need to put that in a big tender and select a partner, a vendor, and then go in deployment is probably a recipe for failure. We need to understand, I mean, we all imagined that MaaS should be a way to bundle different services and we know what the customers want. That's not the reality. I mean, we see a lot of MaaS trial and we see a lot of feedback, but the adoption that we expect, because what we want behind this MaaS project is really get people out of their car and use the different services which are available. The nice way, the clean way to do that, it's probably not defined yet, and it will be very specific accordance to market. So doing a very progressive approach, starting with a pilot and then moving forward. As I was explaining, learning is the most important part of this. Learning what the customers are, how the customers are going to react to this limited trial, so that we can get some new insight. Also, something very new for organizations is working with other mobility service providers. Yes, we partnering with the other mass transit, but no, not the other ones. And this is really starting to connect to startup-like players, and it's something that is very interesting for us. Also, from an IT standpoint, we know that we are in front of a lot of digital technology decision and experimenting the turnkey solution approach, because for this pilot, we've selected Instant System as our partner for that. It's a turnkey solution. And for my IT organization, seeing what it takes in order to integrate that type of solutions in our framework is something very, very interesting and very enlightening for us in terms of taking the decisions for our future infrastructure. Another project I'd like to share with you is our Moonstrom project. It's a very strange name a little bit, but Moonstrom, Munt is actually the name of a very well-known place in Brussels. It's Place de la Monnaie, where we have the opera. This is the center of the city. It's in the middle of commercial street, shopping centers. It has a big metro stations. It has bus lines. It has parkings. Everybody wants at some point in time to go through that place if they want to go in that area. And basically, we found that it was a good setup in order to start experimenting how to do what. Well, understand, but not only understand, but have develop the skills and the capabilities so that we can influence the behavior, that we can advise our customers in a way that they could change their habits about their transportation. And for that, it's clear that the data set that we have today is not sufficient. We don't have enough details about where people are and where they want to go to, and what are the different ways to do that. We also want to do it in an inclusive way, in a sense that certainly if we want to have the capability to assist people in their mobility experience, working with the people with disabilities is probably a very good idea, because those are the ones which are really have strong and very specific needs, and probably could be one of the prime beneficiaries for that. And how are we going to do with that? Well, the traditional approach, of course. First, we need to reinforce our mapping, especially on the underground parts, to have very detailed maps, and we're going to use later and technologies like that to have a very precise view of all the surroundings of the place. Start experimenting technologies in order to count the number of people, know where people are and where they go, and put all of that in an add-on to an application in order to steer people. You could say, well, that's a pretty ambitious and pretty, let's say, it's a good dream, but that probably many operators have. What's very interesting in this part is, as a public organizations, we have very strict tender laws that we need to follow. And those laws makes that we need to define what we want, and then write an RFP, and then select a vendor based on what we've specified. And at the end of the day, when it's ready, it's actually something else that we wanted. So basically, it happens that the public laws around that have thought about a process that is called pre-commercial procurement, where basically you can use an approach which is more similar to what we use in the private sector. I'm coming from the telecom sector, and basically when we have a complex problem, basically we ask the vendor to come, experiment, show what they can do, and then we build the solution the way we want it in order to get into the market. And that is the philosophy behind that. It's an experimentation. It's going to take time. It's going to be probably slightly complex in order to put that all together, understand how to use that way of working. But it's certainly promising to have great visibility and dynamics around the vendor community. And I repeat myself, also with a strong inclusion of the city and the end users that we want to hook in that type of experiment. So very creative approach, and really looking forward to see what it's going to give. I'd like to finish my talk with a view about, and it's more internal focused, about what we see in terms of data analytics. I mean, we've had a strong BI type team in the past, and they were doing a lot of great reports. Some of them, actually most of them, were not used at the end of the day. And we thought that we need to create a new dynamic, and we need to make sure that that we have a bigger ambition to put data in the middle of the organization. So we've made some kind of persona around the organization, where basically you see our CEO here is the key user that will need specific types of reports. We have the middle management, we have the operational team, we have all the community that we call the data lab community, where we put people together every 2 to 3 weeks, and they're sharing all their experience around the data. And of course, we have all the IT guys and the analysts around the table. And the ambition here, and if you remember, I said that there are 9,400 people in the organization. There are about 6,000 blue collars. So that's about 4,000 left. And we believe that 1 out of 3 will be an active user and contributor to our data community. And that's okay. We'll see. It's an ambitious plan, but we believe that it's really putting the ownership and the capability to the people around the data that will make that we could deliver what our end users are really expecting from us, which is being advised in the best way to go around Brussels. And hope, Pia, you will appreciate the result. But to be honest, we still are a public organization, so it takes a bit of time to deliver, but we are strongly focused and aligned, and looking forward to get your feedback in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Pierre. Thank you so much. Very nice presentation, and it was really nice to hear your thoughts. And also, we are still arriving to the station or the next presentation very timely, and that is also a good feature from the public transport. So very much appreciated.
My pleasure.
We will get back to you when it's time for the panel discussion. So our next speaker will be coming from LUMINATOR Technology Group. I'm happy to give a floor to PATRIK NILSSON. And yeah, PATRIK is working as an engineering manager for his group. And PATRIK, where you are joining us?
Okay, thank you very much. I'm PATRIK NILSSON, working for LUMINATOR Technology Group. Currently working as actually a head of system software at the Technology Development Center in EMEA. And I'm part of driving the innovation at LUMINATOR Technology Group in terms of system software. So shortly about LUMINATOR Technology Group. Yeah, LUMINATOR is a very well-known company working with many bus manufacturers, train companies, public transport authorities, operators around the globe, integrating passenger information and video security solutions. We were founded in 1928, and we're serving customers in more than 85 countries. This presentation, I will talk about real-time passenger information across different transport modes and different networks. I hope you can learn a little bit about the case study, how passenger information is dynamically tailored to the information need of the passengers and employees in a public transport. So what we try to do is we're actually converting data into information and try to put that information at the right point in time to the passengers. We provide real-time information about journey, delays, connections, disturbance information, and we share the information across different transport modes, whether it's a bus, tram, or a platform sign. We like to ensure that the latest information is always available, also on board on the bus and the tram or the train. So, information. The information needs are very individual. Different persons look for different information at different points in time. And the journeys, they offer multiple modes. First you start with the bus and then take the train. Different persons have different needs of information. The bicycle rider, for instance, like to know how crowded is the service. The fleet planner would like to know, do we need more vehicles? The visual impaired person like to know which platform does the train departure from. The bus driver like to know, am I on the schedule or not? What is the time to departure at the next stop? Is there any disturbances on the line that I need to consider? The passenger riding the bus or a train like to know when the bus arrives. The parent that might stand and wait on a platform on the train for its child like to know when will that train arrive. So published schedules and timetables are very good, but passengers and operators, they expect real-time information. So I'll take you through a journey from A to B. So you will probably end up on a railway station or a bus station or at a shelter. You will probably be exposed to one of our digital signage here with either e-paper with a solar panel, TFT screen, LCD or LED sign at the railway station. And those displays will inform you about the arrival time, the departure time, and the disturbance message that you need to know about the journey. When boarding the vehicle, you will have the information right in front of you. What is the next stop? What is the final destination? What are the connections here? As you can see, for instance, here on the right-hand side of this TFT screen, you have information about the commuter trains. You will see what is the platform that specific connection will depart from, and how much time is left until it departure, so you can plan your journey better. In case there are disturbances on the line, you will be notified that looking at one of our TFT screens. So the information is available at the right point in time whenever you need it. On this example here, you see estimated time of arrival at the final destination at Jennyfield here. It will arrive 14:52. So you can plan your journey and you can inform maybe your parent that are waiting for you that you will arrive. On the right-hand side, we publish media like videos, images, weathers, news, targeted for you to enhance your experience while traveling. The fleet operator helps to target the information so it becomes available for you at the right point in time. We provide back office tool and content management system where the operator can upload videos, images, and put them on a playlist and set the condition when to play it and when to distribute it and to which vehicle to distribute it. It could be that some videos and images are only shown on Monday and Tuesdays, and some are only during peak hours. Some videos could be in a certain geographical area, at a certain route or a certain destination. So it's really tailored that the information, either it's a textual, image, video, is going to the right point, in the right point of time. In addition to this, you can also get proof of play. So there could be a possible revenue stream for the advertisement in case the operator like that. During the journey, the bus driver or the train driver wants to have information about the progress of the current journey. The bus driver like to know if it's ahead or behind the schedule, what is the departure time at the next stop, how many meters is left until the next stop, is there any disturbance on the line, what are the connections for commuters. So the driver is as well informed as a passenger. So the data is shared across the platform on board. Concurrently, on the fleet management in the back office, we provide tools so you can follow and monitoring the vehicles live. You can see which vehicles that are behind the schedule, on time, or slightly to be behind. You will see when it will arrive, when it has arrived, when it will departure. So you have a real-time monitoring of your entire fleet during the journey. After the journey, you have the data about where the bus has been driving. Each GPS position, each position data has been stored in the back office, and we can track and report when it arrived and when it departed at a certain stop. So using this data, we can report back to the authorities, and you can also use that data to optimize your fleet and make it more efficient. So the key for this intelligent mobility is that we can have an integration of different hardware, software, and data sources across the entire platform and entire city. So we are connecting systems for bus, trains, trams, control centers, data hub, and the result of this is that we dynamically can tailor the information to the passengers and employees in a public transport. One of the key points to make this possible is data hubs. That is a gateway where we integrate different standards, dialect, and exchange information across different transport modes. To start with, the data hub gets the schedules, the timetable information. That information is shared across the entire network, so you dynamically can catch what is the route of the journey and the block. In return, the vehicles send back their position. and then it shares the information about each and every individual vehicles. So it can be shared on the platform signs, on the mobile apps, operator websites, and also that this bus can get the information about what are the connections for the next trains, for instance. Whenever there is an update on schedules, that change is immediately activated and pushed out to the vehicles. However, important is that there is a fallback solution. We don't always have internet, but the bus and the trains need to go anyway. So important for us as Luminator Technology Group is to provide a fallback solution, so the bus can drive anyway. You will have the information on the destination signs, on the inner sign, and the voice announcement for the passenger will work anyway. So going to the very heart of this, we have data that is produced. We have stop buttons, door signals, GPS position, occupancy load using CCTV cameras and artificial intelligence. A lot of data is produced and shared in the network. Those we call producing services, data that is shared on the network. So important for us is that the data that is produced in the vehicle is shared across the entire network in the bus and then transported also to the data hub so it can be used in other systems. In that way, we can provide real-time information about the journeys, delays, connections, disturbance information, and make sure that the latest information is always available on board. So, key for us is data, but it's not enough. You need to convert this data also into information. We have a lot of data in the data lakes, but that doesn't solve the problem itself. We need to integrate multiple formats. For each new customer, there's a new format, and that has to be integrated. We help the customer to do that. We help the customer to contextualize the information so we can help to target the information to the right vehicle, to the right display at the right point in time. We use the data for the actual journey produced, so we can do predictions using artificial intelligence about arrival time for the next time. So the more journeys we drive, the better our algorithms become. We also use data that is produced from the vehicles, from each unit, to help to keep the system and the buses and trains out there to help and serve the community. So our goal is that we can have high uptime and reduce the downtime by having preventive maintenance. And that we do by sending data to the back office so the depots have the right spare parts at the right point in time, or we can help them remotely to solve the problems. So when you have the data, what we help the customer with is that we convert that to valuable information. So it becomes easy and convenient to travel with either train or bus or tram or train. We help the bus driver with the valuable information. And these are called consuming services. So they are the ones that are consuming the data that is produced in this network. In addition to that, we also have voice announcement, either as pre-recorded files or text-to-speech files. So there you can create a dynamic voice announcement and help in assistance to what you see. So the benefits of this connected network and multimodal journeys is that we have real-time info about the journeys. Everyone has the information about delay, connection information, disturbance information is shared efficiently across the entire fleets. It's shared across different transport modes, and the latest information is always available on board. Thank you. If you have any problem, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me either on my email or send me a message on LinkedIn. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Patrick, for your presentation. And of course, the audience also have a chance to type in the questions via chat box. And after some 15 minutes, one more presentation, we will then go to your questions. But once again, thank you. And also thank you for making our everyday life with transport system as a nicer experience. It's really important to have a good and real-time information about the services and also about the potential disruptions. And it has been very interesting to hear some or listen some studies on the which has made among the users of public transport services, where the result has actually stated that if you ask from the users and passengers whether they appreciate more frequent services or whether they appreciate more the good quality information. If they have to choose between those two aspects, they rather improve the passenger services so that the passenger information so that they can have that real-time reliable information rather than at the frequency. And that is, of course, very important point for the operators and authorities' point of view. But I think now it's good time to take one more presentation. So it's my pleasure to invite Jeremy Acklam, Integrated and Smart Travel Director from Transport for the North, to join this discussion with us. And Jeremy, I know that you have a presentation for us. So you have now 15 minutes for the presentation, and then it's good time to dive to the panel discussion with all of you. So Jeremy, floor is yours.
Excellent. Thank you very much, and good morning. So I'm speaking about Transport for the North, which is an organization pulling together all of the local authorities and city regions in the north of England. I've recently joined Transport for the North. My background is very much in rail ticketing and open data, and particularly open data across the entire continent of Europe. And so I'm focusing my experience on achieving that across all of the operators in the north of England. And so what we're doing at Transport for the North is that we're actually the first statutory so-called sub-national transport body in the United Kingdom. Of course, we've had Transport for London for many years. And in 2018, Transport for the North was formalized as a body to take forward the case for transport being a strategic activity across the north of England and to deliver smart travel solutions. Now, that's really important for the North because we have a very particular approach in context of the political control of transportation, because we have an almost entirely deregulated situation. So in many of the cities that you've heard already about, how transport information has developed, that has been in line with all of the operators who are under a certain degree of control of the controlling body. We don't have that in the north of England. It is entirely deregulated in the sort of traditional context, and that makes it quite a challenge. And so our vision as Transport for the North with all of our stakeholders is how we achieve a thriving north of England where world-class transport supports sustainable economic growth and excellent quality of life and improved opportunities for all. And of course, the challenge post-COVID-19 is that we know that all of the previous norms that we have expected are unlikely to be the same again. And so we're looking at how we can take that forward, how we can use what we have got already, and what we need to do next. Now, we've already and continue to make the case for pan-northern strategic transport improvements, because we believe these are what is needed to support transformational economic growth, particularly post-COVID-19. And that is about improving productivity. It's about creating more job opportunities, and essentially creating a larger contribution to the UK's overall economy. Now, what that does need is the delivery of a sustained investment program to build transport infrastructure and to harness innovation and to encourage smart technology. That is what we're doing in the Integrated Smart Travel group. That is our focus. And we're doing that because for the first time, Transport for the North has brought together civic and business leaders from right across the North to deliver that and outline that future that we're looking to do. So what I'm going to tell you about today is where we've got to with that so far, the direction that we're going in, and how we believe this is really, really important for the 15 million people who live in the north of England. So our program is a multi-phase program. The phase that I'm going to speak about today is primarily is called our phase 2. It is focused on data, on smart travel data. And it is, like all of our programs, focused on working with all of our operators, all of our local authorities, all of the cities, the 5 city regions in our area, on mutually beneficial partnerships between all of our transport modes. The focus has been very much, of course, ticketing and payment, as we know, in the public transport sector. But I think we're now moving, if you like, to the next stage from that. And fairly soon, we'll be looking at some really innovative solutions in that space. So do watch out for that on our website and in our messaging. But what we have done so far is focused on how we can actually achieve the core part of the transportation delivery to support a £100 billion growth in the economy. So this is not about particular point solutions within any one transport operator. It is about the regional focus of being able to create 850,000 new jobs by 2050. It's about rebalancing what we have in the UK in the sense of decades of underinvestment in transport in the north, and pulling that into the current century. So what we have done is we have started by dealing with data integration and data publishing. Now, we've heard from the other speakers already that if you can't have integrated and cohesive data across transport modes, then this is a major problem in attracting passengers. And so although it might seem in a strategic direction, to be quite a small tactical point about dealing with the source of information in public transport, in practice, it's not, because without that information, without certainty about the provenance of that information, without the passengers being able to be confident about using it, then any strategic development is going to have a really big problem. And so we're focusing on, in this particular phase of our program, the trusted and reliable customer information being the key to encouraging the use of public transport. And so we built 3 tools to make sure that that is the case. We have built, and there's a particular issue about a deregulated environment in the UK around buses, of the question of what is the fare and how do we actually publish those fares? How do we make sure they are accurate? How are they then published in such a way that any other data source can get hold of them? And so we have a fares build tool, which I'll go into a little bit more later. But essentially what this does is create a single repository for all of the bus operators across the north of England. And that displays collates and displays and checks fares as open data. And then this can then be included in a whole range of journey planners, you know, from Google to local solutions, etc. And other customer-facing platforms, and really this is a basis of that multimodal travel, because the bus is a core part of any multimodal travel opportunity, and therefore the price and the fare is equally vitally important. That tool is going live this year in December. We also have added a disruption messaging tool. And what that does is take a different tack. We've talked about real-time data. We've talked about real-time data capture, about the processing data from location-based services on vehicles, for instance. That's not what this is. This is about the point issues that happen when you have disruption, like, for instance, road maintenance, like a burst water main, or immediate, you know, requirements to reroute services because of major events and things like that. These are really significant things that happen to the public transport network. And it's really, really important that our passengers know what's going to happen. You know, will their route be longer? Will it actually not call at the location that they want to get off at? How, you know, where should they get off for things like music festivals or sporting events in the event of disruption? And so what we have done is to use this, of course, right now as a method to begin to capture the information that is also vital about encouraging people back to public transport post-COVID-19. And so that can include things like the available space on a particular vehicle. You know, if you're in a service where maybe there's a service every 30 minutes or so, and the one that turns up is already full in regards social distancing, you know, that's not really good news. You'd really like to know that beforehand so that you can replan. And so that type of data, that type of disruption data, can be included in this platform. And we have been working with all of our operators to ensure that the data can be sourced, whether it's from a local transport agency or whether it is from the operator themselves, to provide accurate and up-to-date information. What we're doing with both of those is then to make those pieces of data and other data available in an open data hub. Now, for us, this is really almost the end of the line, because we're not a transport operator. We do not supply customer-facing apps and websites in that sense. We're working on the fundamental underlying data. And so for us, the Open Data Hub, as we saw Patrick explaining, you know, about what he's done with data hubs, is the layer at which you have that certainty of data provenance, the ability to say, well, we're really happy with what is there and the way that is processing. And so we're using this and our fares data to support the government's the UK government's open data program for bus travel, etc. And it's very important for our strategic development going forward, of which I'll say a little bit later, that we have this open data platform and continue to extend it. Now, in the context of the way that we are creating and helping create and publish and sharing data, as I explained, we're doing this in the context of essentially customers directly using third-party apps and websites. And so our overall focus is to use open standards, to go through that whole question of converting the data, transforming it, to ensure that it matches up, so that the fares published, for instance, match up with the routes that are and the timetables that are available, so that we don't have gaps in the data, so that we can ensure that what customers then see is valid data. In the context of our disruptions tool, again, we're using a whole range of open standards. We're publishing, published data is then being used by people like MoveIt and others. And what this does is allow our local authority partners to share messaging about planned and unplanned disruptions. And there's an example here on screen where a particular set of roads is in Merseyside is closed until further notice on this particular example, together with data about what is actually going to happen. Now, this is really important as well to consider the question of how consumers actually want to consume that data. Because if you simply say, well, your arrival time will be X, that's not sufficient information. People want to know exactly what's happening, why their bus is off route, where it's going, how it will come back to where they want to be, etc. And so this ability to add a narrative to the disruption data in the traditional sense of simply making a technical inquiry is really, really important to allow customers to have confidence in the data that is here. And we're in discussion with Google and Citymapper and others as they're now beginning to adopt this data. Our city regions at Transport for Greater Manchester and West Yorkshire Combined Authority and Merseytravel are the first authorities to adopt these tools. Our other city regions, Sheffield and Newcastle, are following quickly, together with our local transport operators. Now, this program has been funded by the Department for Transport. That is how we manage our programs with the Department of Transport. And so that we basically then provide this open data, ensure the quality, and use it then to drive smart innovations to public transport. And that, I think, is where we then look forward and say, so where we are presently is making sure that we have got that quality and that consistency of data across the whole of the North, that we are engaging with not only end user consumers and travelers, but our end user data consumers, operators and other agencies to look at how we can integrate that data with other modes. And that's really now becoming very important post-COVID. Again, key thing about using standards, working with government, and we have a very strong plan for expansion of our open data hub moving forward. And the reason for that is that leveling up is an important aspect of what we're doing in the north of England. The provision of consistent data and integrated across modes of travel is taken for granted by those who've got it. So those of you watching and participating in this conference from locations where you have got integrated travel data across all modes, you take it for granted. Now, in the north of England, we don't have that. But the key thing is that we know that we need that as a core part of improving travel outcomes for the 15 million people who live in the north of England. Our ambition at Transport for the North with our stakeholders is to explore how quickly we can get to a digital twin environment in the transport space. We don't have a great deal of integrated data available, if you like, right across the network at the moment. We think this gives us an opportunity of moving quickly to a digital twin environment where data from every mode is captured in real time and available to be interrogated by operators and travelers, and indeed, in the next 5 years or so, by automated vehicles. And those sort of things are the direction of where we are heading. So if you'd like to find out more, there is a little bit more on our website. There is a video from my project director for transport information, Richard Mason. There's a little bit more about our strategy going forward. And as I said, we'll be making more information available in the coming month about our strategic direction forward. So if you're interested in being part of that, or just seeing what we're doing, then please keep tuned to our social channels, etc. And we'll be really keen to keep you up to date on that. So I'm very keen on taking questions later, etc. Meanwhile, thank you very much indeed for listening, and just going back to our presenter. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. And indeed, now it's time for your questions. And also as an audience, you can still type in your questions via the chat box, and we will now start to go through them. Maybe also building a link from Jeremy's last presentation, I would like to start by discussing the topic of multimodal data, because we are, I would say, pretty advanced in using and gather and deploying the smart services based on the data from one transport mode. But it all, of course, becomes much more challenging when we try to integrate and build more multimodal travel chains and also services. So I would like to hear from all of you, all the panelists, like what is the potential for trip chaining or that multimodal traveling across different modes, and what are the different data or information requirements what you see that enables that multimodal traveling, and also if there are any specific challenges what you enter to when you try to serve people with multimodal trip instead of like just focusing on one mode. I don't know who would like to start. Would you, Pierre, would like to go first?
My pleasure, my pleasure. I guess when we are referring to the concept of MaaS, it's clear that this is the essence of multimodal. It's about providing to our customers the possibility to use any type of services that are available. About making the information available, it's clear that there are some regulations that in any case force us to make some data available, and that's good because it helps the different providers to leverage that data and provide that experience. That being said, I think the challenge is well beyond that in terms of mindset, because when it comes to sharing data, it becomes, when we go beyond what is legally, we are legally obliged to do so, then we can start to feel the nervousness of the organization, because we know that the big players are the ones that are going to be using it, and we know that they are pretty good in providing end user experience in terms of mobility, and we don't get anything from them. So it's mixed feelings. I mean, we know that mobility is and will be an ecosystem, and an ecosystem is made of different parts which are working together, and to work together they have to exchange data, and that dynamics to move from just being obliged to share to really it makes sense to share, because we see that as an ecosystem of peers rather than a system where we want to be the only one controlling our customers, and we want to share as minimum as we can information because we want to be the only one to assist the end user in that sense. So it's very complex topic internally, and we haven't, and I don't even start talking about the ticketing part. I mean, how are we going to charge each other in a multimodal environment? And in Brussels, I mean, you know, Pia, we have an experience. We have a multimodal ticket called Jump, where basically you can use any type of transport, but it's a very historical way of doing things. In a MaaS environment, should we go with B2B type of connection between even the transport operators? Those are big questions which are open today, but which are critical in order to open that multimodality with the potential that it can give to our customers.
And maybe just a quick follow-up question here. So do you think that the MaaS platforms like Move Brussels, what you are now piloting, can it also establish a completely new kind of data sets for you? Is it also mean to gather more precise information from the traveler about their preferences, you know, when they would like to move, what kind of choices they make between the modes, all that? Is it something what you have investigated a lot, like what to do with that data, what you potentially get via aggregated platforms?
Yes, yes. And first of all, what's clear what we've done with that pilot is connected to our own open data. And we realized the limitations and you know the elements that were missing as part of the service offering that we have. But there's an element which I don't mention here, but next to the platform providing the service, there's also another platform that we source in order to get the experience of the end user. Of course, when they use the platform, we get the data and we'll be crunching that to our data analytics engines and in order to get the best out of it. But we don't need to launch a MaaS platform for that. The element is when you experiment that MaaS platform, what did you like, why didn't you like, and what would you like to see, and how can we facilitate your experience with that approach to sourcing the service. And that is something that really requires interaction with the end user directly with concrete feedback and not just only analyzing their patterns of search and movement around the city.
Thank you. So maybe we go to Patrick next. And by the way, I forgot to mention that John, our first speaker, was not able to stay with us until this Q&A session. But if you have any questions to John regarding his presentation in particular, you can also contact the Intelligent Transport team, or all the questions what were directly addressing John's presentation will be also communicated to him so that you can follow up. But yeah, Patrick, what is your uptake on this challenge-related multimodal data and information and its deployment?
Yes, it's a very exciting time now in public transport in general when we are digitalizing and making data available. And as I see, it's all about data. And so the data is the new gold. And the thing is that we need to connect different suppliers, do the integration works, and we need to connect them in the back office. We need to connect everything in the vehicles. So make a network of network and converting that information data into valuable information. So there are good initiatives out on the market now with national access points to sharing data, good initiatives with the data hubs, so data becomes available for everyone. So I don't doubt that the technology will be an issue here, and there are good initiatives on the market that will encourage this. So it looks very promising. It's a matter of time.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. So what we have seen also in the European level, and also thanks to actions of the European Commission or European Union, there has been lots of improvements done in the past 5 years in terms of the availability of the data, and also harmonization of the standards or quality of the data. And now, as you mentioned, the national access point and the mobility data space discussion, what is still ongoing, it's really a big enabler for the development of the new kind of data-based services. What I still feel is or where the challenges are, they are really there in the interface of those stakeholders who consider themselves to be data providers and those who consider themselves to be data users, both of them typically having their own business interest or business models. And that question, how we can enhance or build that trust between the data users and data providers, is a cultural thing. And it's something where they need also sort of like a commercial model or good data sharing model. And that is now and I think the next big thing, what we also as the industry should work together between public and private sector, between data providers and data users, so that we can make sure that we have as much as possible data shared in our transport system for the benefit for the city's transport system, but also for the users. So Jeremy, would you like to still step in? Your presentation was very much already highlighting some main questions related to multimodal data availability and how it can be used. But do you have something to add to the discussion?
Yes. I think the challenge around data that we're, in that sense, focusing on is one which it's really important to stretch the viewpoint than we have done traditionally. So it needs to include roads. It needs to include, the whole question of traffic flow. We know that traffic flow has a massive implication on bus journey times, for instance. It also needs to include things like cycling. How long will it take you to cycle to a transport hub to then get at a reasonable interchange time to get a journey onwards to your destination? It's no good as considering multimodal if we do not include walking and cycling and things like that, because if we do not, then we're essentially saying, well, drive from home, because we don't consider that as part of our planning. And we need to do that. We need to make it absolutely clear that this is about planning a journey from your home or your work to somewhere else. There is almost no journey which does not include either walking or potentially taking a run or a cycle journey in that sense. And these are traditionally completely ignored by public transport operators. And that is why we as Transport for the North are taking a much wider viewpoint in saying, well, what are the objectives that need to be met? What are the objectives of our local government and about, and of the people that we are working for? And it's about things like reducing the incidence of carbon dioxide, for instance, reducing pollution, and other benefits which are very difficult to achieve using the direct levers of an economic system that the transport operators run by. In other words, once you run out of the ability to offer a discount or create a congestion charge, because that's basically all you can do in a monetary economic system, what do you do next? And so the challenge in regards collecting the data and managing the whole multimodal question is how you include all of those other pieces of data. How do you weigh an electric vehicle versus a cycle versus a diesel bus versus whatever? And those things have not yet been considered fully.
Very good. Thank you, Jeremy. Well, I think there has been also poll open for the audience now while we have been discussing and about the topic that what type of information do you think that passengers most want to see from operators and authorities in these times? If we can see the results, maybe we can reflect them a bit. Can we see the results? Well, okay, maybe I take one question meanwhile. So, PATRIK, let's go back to you. So from the audience, there was a question about different data formats and asking that, are you supporting IT-XBT to avoid these costly conversions and vendor logins?
Yes, indeed. So we've been part of IT for 3 to 4 years, and we have both producing services and consuming services on board the vehicle. So we are sharing data and we consume data according to IT 40P specifications, not only with the data itself, but also from the hardware point of view. So we use the connectors and the the physical layers that enables it for the bus builders to make it easy to change a device to another, so reducing the service time. Yes, indeed.
Okay, thank you. Well, now we are ready to go back to the poll question. So thank you, team. So the question said to the audience was that what type of information do you think passengers most want to see from operators or authorities in this post-COVID or pandemic times? And the options were crowdness level, travel disruption information, pricing information, COVID safety information, for instance, regarding the when the bus has been cleaned or disinfected last time, or all of the above. And it seems that it was 50%, half exactly, who were considering that it's really the level of crowdedness which is most important factor. The people were also interested to get similar information from both of those mentioned factors, crowdedness, travel disruption, pricing, and general safety information. So it seems that really that part, how to guarantee the social distancing measures on board, seems to be the thing which is mattering still most for the passengers. Any comment to this? Is this also reflecting to your feelings and your perceptions there in the field? So maybe we can again start with Pierre.
Well, it's clearly we know that from a long time. The new one arriving is the cleaning part, which I don't think anyone has anticipated that one day we would get the request in order to do that type of provide that type of information, and otherwise, and also the crowdness level. I think it was never put on the table. The crowdness level has been used internally quite heavily. But I don't remember having it on the roadmap of our mobile applications before the COVID time, even though it makes a lot of sense to provide that data, because we love people to take into account that data. And in that respect, I mean, COVID has been an eye-opener in terms of possibilities that we have with our data internally, because we have a lot of that since years, but not made it available to the public.
I will now also open the discussion for Patrick and Jeremy to step in. So also regarding to that new features, what has been introduced thanks to COVID or due to COVID, do you think that they will be here to stay? So what of these features like occupancy rate, capacity, all that things, are they also valuable in, let's say, in the situation that we are already back to normal, so to say, or do you think that they are just here for a temporary period of time?
Well, I think that it's quite likely that they will be here to stay for some people, but for other people, it's likely to be quite temporary. So if you look forward and say, well, okay, maybe at some point where there's going to be a widespread vaccine, and this particular variant of COVID is going to be dying out, then some people will say, well, fine, I don't need that information anymore, and other people will still say, well, actually, it's really quite useful. But there is one thing that I think that we probably have all collectively learned out of this process. It's just taken far too long. How long has it taken us to publish crowdedness data? And the issue that we should be considering is the flexibility that is required out of public transport. We don't know what might be needed next, but what we do know is we really need to implement it within 2, 4, 6, 8 weeks. We cannot have systems that take a great deal of time to upgrade. We need to focus on flexibility.
Patrick, would you like to add something?
Yes, I would say it's here to stay also, and in general, it's about making public transport more attractive, making it more smooth to travel, and providing features like where are free seats available is a benefit to be more comfortable traveling, reducing boarding time. So if we can know that in the rear in a vehicle there are a lot of people, then you would encourage to go enter in the front of them, and that would reduce the boarding time, and that will enhance the efficiency of the fleet. So yes, it is here to stay.
Okay, very good.
Maybe I can just react as well on the comment on Jeremy about the cycle time, and I think COVID has brought us also another positive element, because if you want to process and make your data available much faster, it's very likely that you're going to use digital platforms.
Yes.
Activating cloud capabilities and things like that, which is something that we know since a long time that, yeah, maybe it's a good idea, maybe not. And then the COVID arrived, and then everybody was so happy that we could activate Teams and all those collaborative tools very quickly, and that it saved the capability of keep on working during that very specific environment. So that has provided credibility to that sourcing model big time. And I even had a comment which made me smile by one of the executives of the company saying, Pierre, you were a visionary when you started to move our email to on Exchange Online. Well, thank you very much. I don't consider myself a visionary of buying more Microsoft products, but still, I mean, in the mindset of people, it showed that we are progressing in sourcing capabilities which can be activated in a much more agile way. And that COVID has just wake up the eyes and has opened the eyes of everybody about this is what digital can bring you. Access to capabilities at a speed that you can't source internally. And that credibility can now be used in different areas of our business, and has certainly and will help the multimodality and the sharing of data in the future. That I'm very convinced.
I think what we have learned today is that we are really advanced delivering mobility-related data to the passengers, and we have many good channels for that. I was also wondering, like, what in your thinking, do you also expect that we will soon start to think how to integrate commercial information, like some commercial advertisement, you know, opening hours of the magazine, some discounts, which is not related anymore to transport system or transport services, but can be partners from the stations, or can be partners for the retailers or something like that. Do you see that commercial side of information flows entering also to the channels what you are using today to communicate with your passengers?
That's a good question.
Yes, I was going to say from our point of view at Transport for the North, we are looking to see, to pick a word that was used earlier, how that future ecosystem looks. And, you know, we have, when you consider who and what type of party are involved in transport, it's actually just about all of the different actors in society. And yet only a small number of them are involved in what we call transport at the moment. And so I think it is inevitable that that ecosystem will reach out to everybody who has an interest in transport.
Okay, well, I think we have just few minutes time left, so I also see that there were more detailed questions to Pierre-André. First question about pre-commercial procurement, what you mentioned. So the question goes exactly, how does pre-commercial procurement work? And are the participants paid for their contribution, or do they have to work for free?
No. Well, there is a part of the design process that they have to. I mean, they need to notify that they're being interested, and there's a framework defined for that. And then at some point in time, there is budget which is being allocated for the various participants that have qualified to the process. So this is still the root of the process is still public procurement, in the sense that there are a number of rules that you need to follow. The way it's different here is the fact that you can start activating a number of players, sharing and selecting them based on a problem, not based on the solutions that you want to see. And with that respect, of course, they are being paid at some point in time in order to do the proof of concept and the early field trials and things like that. And then you go into the formal selection process, and then you do the rollout. So yes, there are capabilities, there are possibilities to pay the suppliers as part of the test and the proof of concept part.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think we are entering to the time that, or approaching the time that we have to wrap up this session. First of all, I really want to thank all the speakers. It's a pity that John was not able to follow or participate the conversation in the end, but I really enjoyed his presentation in the beginning. And thank you, Pierre, Andre, Jeremy, and Patrick for your insightful presentation and also taking part for this Q&A session with the audience questions. For me, it has been a pleasure to participate this event, even in this digital format, although of course I hope that next year at latest we can go back to somehow physical gatherings and meet you there. If you have any questions related to Mobility as a Service or what Mobility as a Service Alliance do, you will find me also from the platform, and feel free to contact me via that channel. Thank you for Intelligent Transport for organizing this, and I really want to wish all of you very pleasant day and afternoon, and please enjoy the summit. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.